The 1985 baseball season ends tonight at this ballpark in Kansas City, Missouri, as the winner of the World Series is determined. And the script comes to you right out of Fantasyland. Two teams vie for one title, and each leads with its ace. John Tudor, who's already won twice in the series, will be on the mound to oppose the incredible wonderkind, Bret Saberhagen.
I feel a little bit more comfortable now that my wife Janine's had the baby. I can go out there and concentrate mainly on baseball and worry about each hitter as they come up, and in between innings I can concentrate on who's coming up the next inning and try to go out there and do a good job and keep us in the ballgame as long as I can.
Pressure is a word everybody loves to throw around. Pressure, pressure this, pressure that. What about the pressure in your mind of pitching the 7th game of a World Series?
I think the pressure in that game is that it's going to be the game that's remembered. It's not going to be the game that's remembered for people aren't going to remember what Bret Saberhagen did throughout the course of the season or what John Tudor did throughout the course of the season. They're going to remember what they did in the 7th game of the World Series, and I think that in itself is the key pressure in the ball game.
ABC Sports presents the 1985 World Series. From Royal Stadium in Kansas City, Game 7, the St. Louis Cardinals and the Kansas City Royals. Last night, a classic, and a classic pitcher's duel through 7. Charlie Lebrand for the Royals and Danny Cox for the Cardinals. Then in the 8th, Brian Harper, pinch hitting for Cox, broke his bat, but this single to center made it 1-0 St. Louis, and it looked like it would stand up. But then, with 1 out in the 9th, Dane Orge signals to right to drive in 2. Kansas Cityans took to the streets to celebrate. They hope it continues tonight. Not often does an umpire get a hand, but there was a small smattering of applause when Denkinger's name was just announced. Cardinal lineup tonight. Like last night, they go with Ozzie Smith in the leadoff spot, and Willie McGee, who had batted number 1 for the first 5 games, is second. Tommy Herr is third, still looking for his first RBI in the World Series. Then Clark, the cleanup batter. Andy Van Slyke batting 5th. Terry Pendleton, the switch hitting third baseman, the number 6 hitter. Tito Landrum is in the 7 spot tonight. Darrell Porter does the catching. And the pitcher is John Tudor. Take a look now defensively at the Royals. Steve Balboni, the first baseman, and Frank White, who made a nice little play last night on that ball hit by McGee up the middle, and that choked off what would have been a Cardinal rally in the 8th inning. They settled for 1. Buddy Biancalana, we all know about him now, the shortstop, and George Brett at third. In the outfield, Lonnie Smith in left field. And along with Willie Wilson in center, those two play every day. And the right field situation, the platoon with Darryl Motley getting the start tonight against the left-hander Tudor. Jim Sundberg, the kind of guy who it takes an entire 2-week period like this to really appreciate, is the catcher. And on the mound is the cool and composed one, and it's a cliche to say that, but how else do you describe Bret Saberhagen?
Other than very talented. What impressed me in Game 3, 9 innings, 6 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, which is very impressive. And he's not a strikeout pitcher, even though in September he did have games with 10 and 12 strikeouts. Features a fastball, a changeup, and a curveball, but what impressed me about the 3rd game was he didn't have his changeup working earlier in the game, which has been his best off-speed pitch. Kind of put in his back pocket till late in the ball game, went with his curveball, and all of a sudden 2 strikeouts in the 8th inning with his changeup. So he's a type of pitcher that seems to be able to establish what his best pitch is early, which usually allows him to stay in the game a lot longer.
Ozzie Smith, the MVP of the League Championship Series, but 1 for 19 in the World Series. The switch hitting shortstop to lead things off. So on a cool and somewhat breezy evening, here we go, Game 7. A strike. Smith, McGee, and Herr. Ozzie still making contact despite the 1 for 19. He has not struck out of the series. 0-2.
To me, Al, the big interest, I mean, everybody says the big game, everybody down on the field saying who's going to win, Tudor and Saberhagen. If you're a pitcher, you can't throw any harder. I mean, if you try to throw harder, you lose your feel, you lose your control. You can't make the ball break any sharper when you throw a curveball. What I think Reggie Jackson said last night is really playing or pitching within yourself, using all the tools that got you to where you are right now, and that's 20 wins during the regular season and 1 in the World Series.
Little chopper foul, 1-2. Last night's star, Dane Orge, who got a great ovation when he came out for batting practice amongst the early arrivals, looking on. 1-2. In the air to center field, and Ozzie will be 1 for 20 as Willie Wilson puts it away. Now Willie McGee, the league batting champion. McGee last night was 0 for 4. He had a chance in the 8th inning with a score of 1-0 St. Louis. He came up with the bases loaded and hit that ground ball up the middle, and Frank White was able to turn it into a force. Mike Smith, a switch hitter. 1-0.
Jim, you said to act natural and to stay within yourself. Don't you find it very difficult in this situation to do that?
Oh, most definitely. One of the worst things a pitcher can do is tense up. When you tense up, what it does is you just don't have the looseness with your wrist and your fingers. And when you do that, the ball straightens out.
That's in the air to center field. Wilson broke the wrong way, comes racing in, and he does that time and time again with his speed. So again, Wilson having trouble reading it off the bat, but it hangs for him, 2 down.
This ball in on Willie McGee. There have not been a lot of balls hit hard off Kansas City pitching. As Al said, Wilson broke back and now in. Speed makes up for a lot of mistakes in the outfield. But my point about Brett Saberhagen and John Tudor, you're almost asked to act normal in an abnormal situation.
Tommy Herr tries to drag his way on, and the count is 0-1. Well, what's really abnormal is that 3 years ago, Brett Saberhagen is in line at a high school graduation.
1982, a graduate from Cleveland High in Reseda, California. His last high school game he pitched was in Dodger Stadium.
0-2, Dick Hauser, who's managed the Royals since 1981. Whitey Herzog seeking his 2nd world title with the Cardinals. Herr, who drove in 110 runs during the regular season, has none in the World Series. Partially, or in good measure really, because Ozzie Smith has not been getting on at all in front of him. McGee has, but not Smith. 1-2 the count.
That's one of the big reasons Herr had such a good year. He had McGee and Coleman batting in front of him and Jack Clark behind him. Sandwiched in front of power and behind speed. That's a good formula to drive in runs.
Well, if you're a pitcher and you know a guy can run on first base or throw a lot of fastballs, and Herr's smart enough to know that.
That's hit in the air to shallow left field, and Biancalana, looking up into the night sky, puts it away. 3 up, 3 down. Cards nothing. Royals coming up. Royals lineup tonight, as usual. Lonnie Smith is the leadoff man. Smith hitting .333 in the series, and then comes Willie Wilson, also having a good series. George Brett, who was stymied last night, went 0 for 4. Frank White, the cleanup hitter. Tonight they have Jim Sundberg, who scored the winning run last night, batting 5th. Steve Balboni hitting 6th. Darryl Motley batting 7th, the right fielder. Buddy Biancalana hitting .333 in the series as the shortstop, and there is Saberhagen, who set him down 1-2-3. And the Cardinals defensively, the outfield of Landrum, McGee, and Van Slyke in right, Pendleton, Smith, Purr, and Clark in the infield, Porter back of the plate, and John Tudor, who has been magnificent, Jim, with 3 days rest this season working.
Well, he has. In the regular season, he was 6-0 with an ERA of 0.69, which it's mind-boggling. He's just been magnificent. You can almost, and Tim, I know you alluded this the other night, you can watch Darryl Porter, who will be catching him, move in and out, and you can tell what kind of, not only stuff he has, but what kind of control. Saberhagen I look at as a power pitcher. Tudor is pretty much a control pitcher, an excellent changeup. You can almost know it's coming. He has such great arm action, you can't pick it up. And as you said, I'm not going to go into the whole description because I can't remember it. He's kind of like a surgeon with a scalpel. He'll really cut you up. Stays out of the middle of the plate, and when he does that, he's successful.
A heart surgeon. Pitch outside to Lonnie Smith, 1-0.
Yeah, the only problem is, as we said the other night, when he takes the heart out of a team, he doesn't replace it.
And he's done that a few times since early June. 1-0 to Smith is fouled away. Since early June, John Tudor is 23-2, with both losses coming to the Dodgers and both to Fernando Valenzuela. Popped in the air, right side for Van Slyke coming on, and there's one away. Jim, you've been here many times. Now tonight it's breezy. It's breezy for the first time in a game in Kansas City in the World Series. The flags seem to be blowing from right toward left. What about the effect on the ball in the air here?
Well, the ball that really travels is really from the bullpen over. You hit the ball down the line, and you're going to look at the wind and say which pitcher does it favor. It definitely favors Saberhagen. There'd be a lot more right-handed batters hitting off of Tudor. If they hit the ball, talking about Kansas City, from the bullpen over, the ball is going to carry very well.
Wilson takes a strike, and the count 0-1. Home runs have been a scarcity in this World Series. In the 6 games, there have been 3. And none in this ballpark. 0-2. Temperature is 62. It was up in the 70s again today. Just gorgeous. Wind appears to be, as we sit here, a little bit more than 7 miles per hour. It has probably picked up. 1 ball, 2 strikes to count on Wilson, a switch hitter. 278 during the regular season. And his career against Tudor reflected there. Remember, Tudor spent a number of seasons with the Boston Red Sox in the American League. So it's a case of several of the Royals having had prior experience to the World Series facing Tudor.
Batting coach Lee May for the Kansas City Royals was talking to him before the game, and I said, what's the key? What have you advised your hitters to do against Tudor? He said, we have to hit the ball up the middle. We have to go the other way. If we try to pull him, we don't have a chance.
Grounded to short. The Wizard of Oz throws out Willie Wilson, and there are 2 down.
Of course, I'm sure there are a lot of batting coaches around the National League that said the exact same thing.
That's the thing about John Tudor. If you try to go up the middle with him, he does have enough velocity to get in your kitchen and to throw you inside, and that's what he did with Willie Wilson. So if you're looking for the ball away to try to hit back through the originator, and he gets inside, then he'll jam you, and that's what just happened to Willie.
2 out, bases empty, no score in the bottom of the 1st inning. Brett at the plate. And he rips it into right field for a base hit. Well, how long did you expect him to stay in a slump? 2 nights?
He was out early taking some extra hitting. High fastball, not a great pitch, but it's still up in the strike zone, and to be a good hitter, you got to be able to get on top of the ball. You can see for yourself, fastball is in the center of the plate. You got to have a quick bat to get on top of that type of fastball.
Frank White, 6 for 24 in the series. Hits it in the air to center field, deep but playable for McGee, and that's about a 395-foot out. Brett, a single. They strand him. We played one. No score in Game 7. Bottom of the second. Here is a John Tudor mini self-analysis.
I'm really a pretty mellow person. I don't get overly excited when I'm pitching, with the exception of from within. So I don't show my emotions on the mound. And for me to go out there and just take it as another ball game has been a lot easier for me, I think, because I'm that way. And that's what I have to try and do, because if, like I said, if I went out there thinking this is it, then I might panic and just go to trying to do things that I'm not capable of doing.
Can't imagine Tudor panicking after what we've seen over the last 4 months as he starts Sundberg with a strike, 0-1.
Well, you know, that's the first thing that I ever learned in spring training, going all the way back to 1964 in Thomasville, Georgia. Do not wear your emotions on your shirt sleeve. Do not let the opposition know what you're feeling. And it's a lot easier said than done. Let me believe. I mean, give up the home run and...
Sundberg hits a fly ball to center field, and that's been a busy area tonight. And that's the second put out for McGee. His counterpart Wilson has a trio, one away. Now Balboni, and the crowd exhorting Balboni. Steve thought of as having a terrible postseason, but still he averaged 286. He has 6 hits. The problem is all singles. But last night, a big single after Clark couldn't handle his foul pop. And he drills it to left, but it's hooking. And foul. Well foul. And back out of play. And the wind helping to push it even further back than it might have gone on another night. No balls and 1 strike to count. 1-1. 36 homers and 88 RBIs during the regular season for this man. Change low, 2-1. The count.
That's one of the few times Tudor will give in to a hitter. He gave in to him with the hard fastball then, and he wanted to keep that ball away, but he got it right down the middle of the plate, and that ball was certainly hittable for Balboni.
Changes speeds, comes inside, it's 3-2.
Tudor's not totally, he's a lot like he was in the first ball game. He only gave up 1 run, but he wasn't razor sharp. He is all over the place with his control so far tonight.
That's outside. So Balboni is at first base and 1 out, and Motley is the batter. I think you said razor sharp because that's the way Tudor would say it with his accent.
In a stoic manner. Because he's from New England.
That's correct.
Hey, I know a lot of animated people from New England. Most of them used to boo me when I pitched in Fenway. And sometimes cheer, especially when I gave up those long home runs.
Motley is the batter. 1-0 the count on Darrell. Buddy Biancalana on deck. It's 2-0. The count. Last night we mentioned Herzog had said, as you see Balboni at first base, that Andujar was a long man, and he might have brought Daly in last night if he was needed early, and he wasn't the way Cox was going. Tonight, Campbell would be the likely long man, and the count goes to 3-1. He'd only start an inning, he says, with Andor. He wouldn't bring him out of the pen. And the only time he would use Daly early would be in a situation where he couldn't afford to have the game broken open. But you really don't think about long men too much when you've got Tudor as your starter. That's fouled back, and the count goes to 3-2.
Dick Hauser's been very conservative in sending his runners in situations like this.
Well, we have now been wrong about 93% of the time. I say he is not going. What do you say?
Well, I think you send him, and the reason you send him is to stay out of a double play. The fact that Balboni can't run has nothing to do with it.
He is going just barely, though, on one of the worst breaks of all time, and it's fouled away. Balboni was going, but he was going about a second and a half after that pitch was fouled back.
Well, it's not the runner's responsibility to make contact. It's the hitter's responsibility to put the ball in play, or if it's not a good pitch, to take it. So you got to make sure the pitcher pitches, and with that in mind, you can break. It's almost like a squeeze play, breaking late from first base, as opposed to a squeeze when you break late from third.
3-2, and they throw over there. Balboni with about a two-step lead. What Clark is doing, as you can see, is playing just behind the bag, keeping Balboni as close as possible and then moving back as Tudor comes to the plate. And Motley drills it to deep left field, but hooking again, and that one is foul. And that one almost went over the top of the foul pole. That was so high.
Did go over the top of the foul pole, and that's one of the most difficult calls for an umpire to make. Well, hits this ball about as well as you can hit a ball. Looks like Carlton Fisk Jr.
Not the end result, though.
He was in his home run shuffle then, wasn't he?
That was a no doubt about it. Just watch those.
3-2. The foul poles here, as Motley goes back, the foul poles are not that high, and he wants to do bad, as you can see, and that one literally went over the top of the foul pole, or the top of the plane of the foul pole.
How can you hit a ball that far and that hard and not want the same bat?
Yeah, you wonder.
Here, he's changing bats. Sometimes you have a hairline fracture as you look at the foul pole in left field. As Al mentioned, that ball very high, but sometimes you have a hairline fracture in your bat and you discover it. I'll tell you, if you discover it after hitting the ball that far, you keep it.
Yeah, right. Clark going to the mound to talk about what he was going to do holding Balboni on. 3-2 with one out. Balboni is going, and the pitch is again drilled to left field, hooking down the line, and gone. Slow. Motley found the right back.
Maybe that's his fair bat. This other one was his foul bat.
They want another curtain call. That's ripped right to third and right at Pendleton. 2 down.
Well, it said comically and tragically that experience is what helps you recognize a mistake when you make it again. And John Tudor makes that same mistake again. After Motley had drilled one deep to left field, foul, he hits this one fair. He knew that was fair. Man, he smoked that ball.
Saberhagen takes a strike, and the count is 0-1.
We talked going into this game that the reason that John Tudor's so successful is that he has a great changeup. He cannot get his changeup over tonight at all.
0-2 the count.
And sometimes when you do not have your full repertoire, you'll throw a fastball, which Motley hit foul, and then you don't have another pitch to go to. You kind of hope.
Check swing, appeal, get the call at first base. Saberhagen can't believe it. Billy Williams said you're out of there. So the crowd boos, but the cheering will start in a moment when Motley moves to right.
Here's the changeup.
There goes Darrell, and there go the Royals into a 2-0 lead at the end of 2. We talked about dreaming the dream as a child, and right now that dream is a reality for Darrell Motley, who is the early hero. It's 2-0 Kansas City as we go to the 3rd inning with Porter, Tudor, and Smith. 8, 9, and 1 against Saberhagen, who has set down 6 of the 7 he's faced. 1-0 the count. Porter, who lives in the area, is staying at home during the World Series and is a former Royal. 2 for 12. Lifted to shallow left field, and Smith comes in to make the catch. 1 away. This program, an exclusive presentation of ABC Sports. A 5-second pause here to allow our local stations to identify themselves.
Batting ninth, number 30, John Tudor. Pitcher.
1 out. Top of the 3rd inning. Al Michaels with Jim Palmer, Tim McCarver in Kansas City. Game 7 of the World Series. Motley's 2-run homer has made it 2-0 Kansas City. And Tudor, the batter, tries to drag his way on and bunts into his own dugout. This is the 5th time in the 7 games that the Royals have scored first.
You get the idea when you look at the first 7 outs that 6 of them were fly balls and 1 was a strikeout. The Saberhagen has a pretty live fastball.
Well, the Cardinals, of course, faced Charlie Leibrandt last night's game. Leibrandt retired the first 15 to face him until Cesar Cedeno singled in the 6th inning. Here's Charlie.
That is one man who does have the night off. 0-2 pitch. He tries to drag his way on again, and down he goes. Strikeout number 2 for Saberhagen. With 2 down and the base is empty. Ozzie Smith is the batter. Flied out of the 1st.
The shortstop.
I know your point, Jim, is that with that high-riding fastball, the Cardinals, who do not have a lot of top-hand hitters, they have a lot of guys like Ozzie Smith, Willie McGee, Andy Van Slyke, Terry Pendleton. And it's tough for hitters of that ilk to handle high fastballs. Except for Ozzie right there.
You know what? Smith, ever since the home run in the playoffs, and I don't think it's just my imagination, seems to be, shall we say, muscling up a little bit more. Even Herzog was talking about that last night. Swinging a little harder than normal. 1-1 the count.
It's what happens when a hitter who is not expected to hit a home run becomes enamored with his power. That could be one of the reasons he's 1 for 20.
Change there. That had it bending over. And the count 2-1.
Well, it kind of goes to basic pitching philosophy. When a hitter knows that you're throwing hard, he tries to get out in front. And when he gets out in front, like Ozzie Smith did on the first pitch, he becomes more susceptible to the breaking ball, the changeup, the curveball.
Grounded down to White. And Saberhagen has retired 9 of the first 10. We play 2.5. 2-0 KC. Going to the bottom of the 3rd inning. That's very interesting right there. We talked about 28 7th games having been played, and the road teams in the past have won 17 of them. So there have been a lot of quiet celebrations in games 7. 1-0 the count on Lonnie Smith. Good breaking pitch, 1-1. I can't imagine there's too much left for a celebration tonight in Kansas City, but I'm sure there'll be one if the Royals win. There was a celebration last night as if the Royals had already won the World Series after that dramatic Game 6 victory. Horns honking until at least 3 in the morning. 2-1. We can definitely bear personal witness to that.
You're on your way to breakfast about that.
Right. 3-1 the count.
An interesting thing about John Tudor, he talked about keeping the game within himself, but notice the facial expressions when he does not get the ball where he wants to.
Starts the 3rd inning with a walk. And you're exactly right in the sense that Tudor, who does not normally express his emotions, all of a sudden you can see the grimacing and the facial contortions. And it's 2-0 Kansas City with a man at first and nobody out in the 3rd.
If I was pitcher against Brett Saberhagen tonight and I was John Tudor, I would get the message, and I've already gotten it, that I cannot afford to give up too many more runs and still be in this game.
Especially the way the Cardinals have been hitting in this series. Wilson lifts it in the air to right field and toward the line, and it's playable for Van Slyke in foul territory. Andy taking a couple of looks, and he had a lot of room, and makes the play. So Wilson, who loves to go after that first pitch, does it again. 1 out. Tudor facing Brett here. Walked only 1.6 batters per 9 innings this season. So right off the bat tonight, he has already walked more than he normally walks in a 9-inning game. He walked Malboni prior to Motley's home run, and now Smith to lead things off in the 3rd.
Something I wonder about, Tudor pitched 273 innings this year. The most he ever pitched before was 242. He's pitched in 4 postseason games, extra game in the playoffs. Also having to pitch 3 times in the World Series. I mean, he's pitched almost 50 innings more than he's ever pitched in his life.
You really think that has anything to do with the 7th game of the series, though? And can't you gear it up one more time?
Well, it's easy to say it. I think emotionally you'd like to think that, but he stopped throwing between starts because he said he's just a little bit more tired than he's ever been before.
Outside.
It all goes back to what you were talking about before, trying to be loose. It's great to say, hey, this is just another game, but if your arm's a little bit tired, you become a thrower instead of a pitcher, and this is a man right here that cannot be anything but a pitcher. He's not overpowering like Saberhagen.
And I would think because of that, Jim, he wouldn't be nearly as affected by pitching too many innings as a power pitcher would. He's a guy who relies on pinpoint control, but he hasn't had it tonight, and he is working on 3 days rest. And again, John Tudor is a guy who would be less effective working on 3 days rest than, say, a Brett Saberhagen, I would think.
We had that graphic, and it went into the past tense about not walking batters. It said had not walked a leadoff batter in 127 consecutive innings, and what that means is that's 14 games worth where he had not dug a hole for himself at the outset of an inning by walking a man anyway. He had Smith going back that time as he delivered, and the count is 1-1.
Sometimes walking a hitter is not the worst way you can be wild. Darryl Motley had a good cut at a 3-1 pitch, and then the 3-2 pitch. Sometimes you're better off walking hitters. Certainly. I'm sure that's the way John feels about Motley now.
Smith goes, and Brett unintentionally grounds it to the left of Tudor, and no play.
Pitch that Brett really doesn't want to swing at. Excuse me. He's off to the races. Tudor doesn't come up with a play. Pendleton goes by him. No play anyway. That's definitely a base
2, and the batter is White, who flied out in the first inning.
John Tudor really has to be alert with Lonnie Smith on second base. His outstanding speed, and he is a go-for-the-throat type of player. And they're in that position right now.
Hit down the line, hooking, and going foul. The count is 0-1.
If you're a base runner at second base, your ideal time to steal third is with 1 out, because you're willing to take more chances to steal third with 1 out, because if you're over there with 1 out, you can score on something other than a base hit. That's the theory behind it.
Bill Campbell is up in the bullpen. Foul away, and the count is 0-2. You don't wait around in Game 7. Campbell throwing third inning. Two on, 1 out. Third inning, 2-0 KC. Half swing foul, still 0-2. Smith, the runner at second, and Brett at first, 1 out. The crowd will always chorus balk. It will never be called. Pitch outside, Porter's throw, great play by Pendleton, but the runners are safe. But Pendleton saved a run and maybe another.
A lot of times with a runner stealing in a double steal situation, you're better off to try to get the tail runner with the right-handed hitter up. You have the impediment of the hitter, you have to throw over it. Lonnie Smith in there easily. An added point to that is the trail runner never gets as good a jump as the lead runner, because he has to make sure that the lead runner steals third base. The play to second would have been the best play and the safer play, and more of a straight throw to second because you don't have the right-handed hitter to throw over.
The infield comes in now. They cannot afford to give up a run on the ground ball. Ball 3. On deck is Sundberg. The worst thing in the world for Tudor right now to walk White, because Sundberg is prone to hitting ground balls, and that might get you out of the inning.
He'll either make his pitch, or as you said, go for the walk. Does set up a double play.
Still 3-2.
I think the fact that the Cardinals are playing the infield in, or at least halfway, indicates that manager Whitey Herzog realizes they haven't been scoring a lot of runs. When you play in, it enhances the ability of the hitter to hit the ball by you. If that happens, it's going to be 4-0.
Outside. So they're loaded up with Sundberg coming to the plate.
It's a difficult decision, Al, but here you have a guy on the mound that's won 24 games for you.
That's Whitey Herzog screaming at Don Dinkinger, and I think it was the 3-1 pitch to he's talking about. You remember, Dinkinger called it low. It was Dinkinger last night at first base who missed the play at first base, and Whitey Herzog and the Cardinals thought that that was a big play, and they thought that they should be celebrating in St. Louis tonight. A big play when Orta was called safe leading off the ninth.
Infield double play depth, that's a strike. Dinkinger is no stranger to watching Tudor pitch when John was in the American League, and in fact, just last week, Dinkinger was back of the plate in Game 1 when Tudor pitched. 0-1 the count. 1-1. Only the umpire who starts Game 1 can also umpire again in the World Series, as is the case in Game 7 because of the rotation of the 6. They move around every night, and back they come to their original order tonight. 2-1. Breeze has really picked up. It's whipping around the stadium now. Foul back, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes. So the bases are loaded with Lonnie Smith at third, George Brett at second, Frank White at first. 1 out in the bottom of the 3rd inning. 2-0 Royals.
Total contrast to the game that Tudor pitched the other night. He was commanded the entire game with the exception of the 7th inning when he got McRae to ground out with 2 strikes, 2 outs, excuse me.
Saved by Porter. 3-2 the count now.
I was saying before, Whitey Herzog, 7th game of a World Series. You see a guy that won 24 games, 11 shutouts. You still have to make the decision that's going to allow your team to win. Tudor does not have command of any of his stuff tonight. You're looking at a big inning.
As was the case in Philadelphia a couple of years ago when they hooted Bert Hooton off the mound in a playoff game. The crowd is trying to induce a walk. And they get one. Herzog making a very uncommon visit to the mound. On this bases loaded walk to Sundberg, check out the reaction of Brett at second base. Ball 4 delivered there. Tudor, and here's now the reaction of George Brett. Another run is over.
Well, it's a gift. It's the only way you can describe it. It just doesn't happen very often for a pitcher of that quality.
Campbell has to keep him in the game. Balboni, the batter. Campbell came in and struck Frank White out the other night with the bases loaded early in the game with the score 4-1 in St. Louis. Infield, double play depth. Popped up on the first pitch in foul ground and drifting back out of play. 0-1 the count. Balboni and then Motley. Motley's home run in the 2nd inning made it 2-0. 3 walks and a check swing single by Brett that made it 3-0 in the 3rd. Backhanded by Porter, and the count 1-1. Bases loaded, Brett at third, White at second, and Sundberg at first.
Pitching's all about. Coming in, you haven't had a chance maybe to really get loose. You don't know what the mound's like, and you got to face Steve Balboni, 36 home runs with the bases loaded. good in one respect. He strikes out a lot, and he is a double play man. You think about those 36 home runs.
That's grounded into left field for a base hit. Brett scores. Up comes Landrum with the throw. Too late, and it's 5-0.
Well, unfortunately for the Cardinals, this is what hitting's all about, too. A 2-1 count and a fastball. You can sit on a fastball, and if you don't get it, you're in a position to take it. Hitter's delight. Royals up 5-0. What a remarkable ball club this Kansas City Royal club is. They were down 3-1 against Toronto. They came back and beat them. They were down 3-1 against the Cardinals, and they have won 2 and ahead 5-0 in this one. Mercy.
This is the 6th time they have been forced to save Max Point, and they lead 5-0. Motley, strike, 0-1. Balboni, he's really not having a good series, and yet he's had a couple of singles at very critical and key points. 7 hits, all singles. In fact, Balboni's average for the World Series is now over 300. Little squibber to the right side. Clark will make the play at first base, and the runners advance. And Biancalana will come up with runners at second and third. Open, and Saberhagen on deck. And Buddy Biancalana has not drawn many intentional walks.
Not in the American League with the DH.
Saberhagen will be the 9th man to hit in the inning. Cardinal bullpen active again. And with everybody at the ready tonight, Bob Forsch and Ricky Horton are the men who are throwing. Horton is the left-hander. Forsch, the starter in Game 5, and rocked early.
American League pitchers over 46. Going all the way back to 1979, Tim Stoddard against the Pirates in Pittsburgh. High chopper into left field.
This proves once again that a lot of times it's not that you win, but how you win. The Royals winning last night with that dramatic 2-1 win on the pinch hit by Dane Orge. And they've carried that excitement right into this ball game.
So the Cardinals, who were 2 outs away from the world title last night, are now at least 6 runs away. At least. Fouled away, and the count 1-1. Somber. The same bench that was on the verge of exhilaration last night. Lanier was the man fronting Herzog. Good breaking pitch, and the count is 1-2. Nothing Kansas City with the bases loaded and 2 out, bottom of the 3rd inning. Two and two.
me with the bat in St. Louis.
He had 372 his high school senior year at Cleveland High in Reseda. Some athlete.
Little swimmer, and they let it roll, and it goes foul. Still 2-2. I can't believe it. Every time I look at Saberhagen, you can't be 21 years old, 3 years out of high school, and go about it the way he has gone about it the last 2 weeks.
Well, he's the youngest pitcher to ever pitch the 7th game in a World Series. He's also the youngest pitcher ever to start 2 games.
By the way, and we've all watched him on television now, but he's a great kid. He really is. Very friendly and poised and polite. Fun-loving kid. Down he goes. Well, he can't do everything. But his mates have staked him to a 5-0 lead as we go to the 4th. The 21-year-old Brett Saberhagen, I had this visit with him yesterday.
Will the success you've had in postseason to this point be an important factor in making you perhaps more calm than you otherwise might be?
I think I'll be a little bit more calm because I've been in a few games. If it was the first game or the 7th game of the World Series, I think I'd be really nervous. I'll be nervous up until probably the first, second pitch of the game, and hopefully I can calm things down and go out there and do what I have to do.
And what he has to do right now is just protect this lead, and it's a big one. In fact, the way the Cardinals have been going, it is a huge one. 5-0. With Willie McGee to lead off in the 4th inning by grounding it down to White at second base. And he gets him. And so only one Cardinal has reached tonight, Clark, in the 2nd inning. Scoring summary for late tuners in. In the 2nd inning, Balboni a walk and Motley a booming home run to left. 2-0 KC. Then Smith with the walk. Brett, a base hit, the double steal. White's walk loading him. Sundberg drew the walk to force in a run, and a 2-run ground single to left by Balboni. As they bat around in the inning, knock Tudor out, lead 5-0, and with 1 out in the top of the 4th inning, Tommy Herr is the batter. 1-0. Tommy Herr having a quiet series, 4 for 23 after a good season. A terrific first half of the year. I asked Whitey Herzog yesterday, who's the smartest player you've ever managed? Baseball smart. And he said, Herr. In the air to left center field. Lonnie Smith taking care of this one. 2 down. Clark with his 2nd inning single. Tries to bunt his way on again, and it's fouled to the plate. And we mentioned last night an odd series, and I guess indicative of this series, that the cleanup hitters have tried to bunt so much, and also so indicative of this series up until tonight anyway. All 3 runs last night were scored on broken bat hits.
Neither side, as a matter of fact, put the fat part of the bat on the ball too often, and that's really been the story of this series. Pitching has dominated, and I mean completely dominated every game in this series.
In one way or the other.
Yeah,
you go back and again going in. Now we've had 14 pitchers start, with the exception of Bob Forsch, who pitched poorly, and Andujar, and John Tudor, who was off his game tonight. Everybody has pitched well.
That's foul back. Look out.
Don't be bailing in front of me.
Listen, not going to get hurt in the last game of the season, I'll tell you that. If you're going to go on the DL, you do it early when you get paid for it. And you're a catcher. Come on.
I was gone. See you later.
You look like Euchre on that one. 2-2 the count.
Like a left-handed sidearmer was out there. I was gone. Bailing out.
7-game series, lowest batting average. Brooklyn and Minnesota in 1965 at 195. The Cardinals coming into tonight's game were at 190, and right now they're 1 for 12, so they're under that. 2-2 the count. Grounded to short. Biancalana makes it another perfect inning. 12 of 13 set down by Saberhagen. 5-zip. Art Spander of the San Francisco Examiner reminded me that there have been 437 plate appearances in this World Series with 3 homers going into tonight's game. Reggie Jackson hit 3 on 3 swings in 1977. What do you think, Mr. October?
I guess it goes to show you that you don't need home runs to win a ball game or to score a lot of runs. The time that the Royals got the 3 runs, they only put 2 hits on the board, Al, and one of those hits was an infield hit, so the Royals are continuing to get the breaks that they got last night. You know, you guys were talking before the game about the demeanor of John Tudor and his attitude and the fact that he was a little bit nervous and the fact that he was wondering if his season would go down the drain if he had a bad ball game tonight. That's an attitude that you can't take to the mound. It's one that you just can't impress upon your teammates, because you may even make them tense. You got to go out on the mound and just give what it takes. Don't give me 100%. Give me what it takes. The Kansas City Royals have done that tonight.
And Sundberg starts the bottom of the 5th inning with a single to right field.
I refuse to believe that the Cardinals are going to die tonight with just 2 hits. I'm still waiting to hear from them.
And they are overdue.
Sundberg is a good opposite field hitter. Campbell gets the ball up, shoots it into right. Again, just another perfect example of, in a big ballpark, which is what we have here in Kansas City, as we see Whitey Herzog not only going out to the mound, possibly going to the bullpen, what you have to do.
And he's going to bring a relief pitcher in. Jeff Lottie, who had gotten up. Andujar had been working, and Lottie will now come in to pitch here to face Balboni in the 5th inning. 5-0 Kansas City. To nothing Kansas City in Game 7, bottom half of the 5th inning, and Balboni comes up to face Lottie, and Lottie is in the game because Herzog just can't afford to get any further down. You've got to go to one of your top guys here. Swing and a miss. He has Andujar in the bullpen. He also did not make the double switch, meaning that Lottie will just pitch this 1 inning. They'll use a pinch hitter, and then he'll worry about it. It would probably be Andujar if it stayed 5-0. If it got to be 5-3, let's say, you'd see Worrell and Daly up there again. Up high, and the count 1-1.
Well, Lottie led all National League relievers in ground ball double plays. 19 out of saves out of 22 possibilities, so he's the type of guy that can do the job for you. And as you said, Al, you just can't afford to get any farther behind. Tudor and staff. Saberhagen and staff if need be, but that doesn't seem to be the case so far.
And Lottie induces double plays. And he's got a pretty good contender for that dubious honor at the plate right now. That's grounded, goes to the hole, and Balboni's ground balls keep finding the holes.
One of the reasons Balboni's ground balls keep finding the holes because he hits them real hard.
I don't think anybody in the Kansas City Royal organization cares whether Steve Balboni has not had an extra base hit in postseason play. Perfectly content with those singles that he has been hitting, timely singles. His last one drove in 2, and this one makes the threat come alive here in the 5th.
Now Motley at the plate, first and second, and nobody out. Trying to crank up another one.
In a situation that most likely we will not see the bunt because they'll walk Biancalana. It brings up Saberhagen with 1 out. Unless you're thinking squeeze, and he's probably never had to do that before. Didn't squeeze in high school. What did he hit? 372?
Yeah, you don't bunt to bunt again. You don't bunt runners over to bunt again. If you're going to bunt them over, you want to bunt to have somebody drive them in, not bunt them in.
1-1 the count. I'm sitting here laughing to myself, thinking about Balboni. He's been called everything in this series, including a big stiff. And Steve can laugh at you and you say, hey, you know what, folks? I'm hitting 348.
Right.
He's 8 for 23. There it is. 1-2 with nobody out. Sundberg at second, Balboni at first. 5-0 Kansas City. And it's fouled away. Crowd has settled back into what you might call right now a very comfortable posture. Exuberance early on and a lot of cheering, and I'm sure already a lot of hoarseness. But there's the anticipation of what the rest of the night will bring. Ripped into right center for a base hit. That will score Sundberg. Balboni stops at second. 6-zip.
Successful, he has to be down in the strike zone. Up in the strike zone. There, can't get it. And Slyke quickly enough to hold the runner at second. But Sundberg scores.
Now beyond Kalana. Still nobody out. Buddy, buddy, everybody's name being chanted. Half swing, and he came around, 0-1.
The crowd here really has reason to be excited because from a sports standpoint, these fine fans here in Kansas City really have never had anything except the Super Bowl champion. And that was back in 1970 when Lenny Dawson and company beat the Minnesota Vikings in the 70 Super Bowl.
Hank Stram was the coach. 0-2 the count. Up high. This is a franchise, just to refresh you if you're not that familiar with recent history. Kansas City had the A's, but they moved to Oakland, and the Royals were born in 1969. They came into the American League the same year the Seattle Pilots came in, and that team is now the Milwaukee Brewers. And Biancalana goes down swinging, so this is a team that's been around for only a decade and a half as Saberhagen comes to the plate. And the Chiefs through the years have had a decent share of success. They had a hockey team, but they left town. They had a basketball team, but they left town for Sacramento. It's the second time the Royals have been in the World Series. They lost in 1980, and now they're on the verge of winning this one. As Saberhagen grounds to Clark, he goes to second, one back to first, not in time there. As they try to get the double play, Clark going down to Ozzie Smith and back too late to first.
The bunt's too hard. One of the big adaptations that Clark had to make coming from right field is throwing. Perfect throw. We talked about Saberhagen's ability as an athlete, hustles all the way and stays out of the double play. One of those plays as a pitcher, if you stop and watch it, the inning's over.
Lonnie Smith comes up already for the fourth time. We're in the fifth inning, and Smith is making his fourth plate appearance. 1-0 the count. Balboni at third. Saberhagen at first. And for the first time in the World Series, the pitcher really does need a jacket on the bases. It's chilly. 1-1. It may be chilly, but to this crowd, it's a balmy 75 right now. One and two. Looking at Hauser, we told the story the other night, not Steinbrenner's kind of guy, kind of a mutual departure. But what a perfect fit for this franchise and this team. Perfect.
It's amazing how his ball club mirrors his emotions, too.
2-2 the count. And the whole front office here is basically that way. From Joe Burke to John Sherholz, to Herc Robinson, to Dean Vogelaar, and all the way down the line. There's been great consistency, and a lot of things have been underplayed and understated here, but they have done their job so inordinately well. Fouled away, and tonight they're looking for the grand prize, and they're not very far from it.
One of the marks of a player, a team, and an organization is if they can keep the same face, even in the face of adversity. Down 3-1, they were the same people throughout.
Hit by Pendleton. Now Boney will come in to score. Saberhagen being waved toward third. Ferraro's going to send Brett to the plate. Ozzie Smith takes the relay. His throw gets by Porter, backed up by Roddy. 8-0.
Fastball smoked down the line. Pendleton with a diving effort. One of the toughest walls to play in the American League. If it gets by, it can be an inside the Parker. Strong throw from Landrum. You see again, Saberhagen running all the way. What's up, play?
It is 8-0. It's a double, 2 RBIs, third on the throw, a swing and a miss, and it's 0-1. Chopper toward the middle, backhanded by Hurry. He's got to hurry. No, 9-0. Berserk again. Ricky Horton becomes the 4th pitcher to work tonight for St. Louis, and he faces Brett, who is the 8th man to hit in the inning and the 17th man to bat in the last 2 innings. He rips it into center field for a base hit. Wilson on his way to third, and the beat continues, and Brett's 4 for 4.
Well, George, first time in 12 games last night. He had not gotten a hit in the World Series. Certainly making up for it tonight.
The Royals are on the verge of doing something historic, which we have mentioned a couple of times during the World Series. No team ever lost the first 2 at home and came back to win the series. Several teams have lost the first 2 on the road and done it, but never in this sequence or pattern. Royals hitting around for the 2nd time in 3 innings, and the pitch to White is inside. 1-0 the count. thing that will sting for the Cardinals when they think back, not tonight, last night, and Herzog now has to vent his wrath. Well, not really. No, he's going to make a change here. He vented his wrath earlier, and Landrum is trotting in from the outfield. Herzog going to the mound. He's got Andujar in the bullpen. And he's going to bring him in. He's going to make the double switch. And so Tito Landrum, who had such a tremendous league championship series and such a brilliant start to the World Series, departs in a rather inglorious fashion with his club down by a score of 9-0, and he comes out as part of a double switch. Herzog's double switch has Mike Jorgensen now playing left field, hitting ninth. Joaquin Andujar comes in, bats in Landrum's spot. Jorgensen will be leading off in the top of the 6th inning. We're still in the 5th. 9-0 Royals. And White at the plate. And the count, Andujar inherits, is 2-0 with Wilson at third and Brett at first. Two and one the count. Most hits in the 7th game. Brett has put his name up there with Carey and Collins and Stargell, who did it in '79, and George isn't finished by any stretch of the imagination.
He might have a couple of at-bats left, huh?
2-2. How nervous was Brett today? Well, he went to the Chiefs game this afternoon across the parking lot. In fact, he went with Whitey Herzog, or at least met Whitey there. Sat together in the same box. Still 2 balls and 2 strikes. Vince Coleman, we mentioned last night, and I'm still wondering about it. I said, you know, if the Cardinals had gotten to the point where they had a huge lead, either last night or tonight, I suspected that Whitey might give Coleman an at-bat. He might even do it under these circumstances very late in the game tonight, just so Vince can say he's played in the World Series. Even though he's hurt, he's still eligible to play. Little chopper, he could come up and swing the bat and trot down to first base, and if he somehow reached, they could take him out. But something that, you know, Herzog just might think about doing later on tonight.
He actually said today that he felt he could have played. I mean, not have played, but he actually could have played. The doctor didn't, of course, concur with that, but
still 2-2.
Yeah, if the doctor says that you should be out 5 weeks and you said you could play, there's obviously a disagreement there.
I think what he probably meant was that the pain that he had, because he was walking around a week ago with relatively little pain. It's when he started to run, especially on AstroTurf, where he did have a lot of the discomfort.
Popped foul and drifting back out of play. 2-2. Think about Frank White, the batter now, too. The old baseball academy started by Ewing Kaufman. White, the prime graduate, a man who has been here throughout his career. He was here very close to the birth of the franchise. Has played his entire career with Kansas City. And what a night like this means to a Frank White, a quiet and classy gentleman. Foul back, 2-2.
He is the only Royal that's homered in this series, and he did it off Joaquin Andujar back in Game 3. Oh, of course, Darryl Motley this evening has homered. How soon they forget.
Yeah, seems like about 4 hours ago.
What do you mean they, right?
Right, exactly.
3-2.
Jumped on that one, did you?
A lot of home runs I forgot.
Prior to tonight's game, shoulda, woulda, and coulda.
Crowd amusing itself with the wave, which is something you normally do when you're down 9-0. Softly hit, off the tip of Pendleton's glove for a base hit. Wilson scores. Brett to third. They're in double figures.
Slider belt high, just right off the end of the bat. Pendleton with a great effort. See it right off the top of his glove.
Now Sundberg. Nothing. Strike. I don't know what the definition in Webster's is of extreme agony, but I think one definition would have to be having to be a St. Louis Cardinal at this moment, knowing you're down 10-0 and you're only in the 5th inning. In the visiting ballpark.
If you look up the definition of agony, it would probably say dash, check 1985 World Series 7th game St. Louis Cardinals, because it's an agonizing defeat.
Well, the agony is that you have to stay out there right now. If you get beat at the end, that's agony in another sense. To lose like they did last night, but to lose like they're doing tonight, and know that the game still has probably an hour or so to go. Back in 1934, the Cardinals beat the Tigers 11-0 in a 7th game. That has been the most one-sided defeat.
That was the same series where Ducky Medwig was taken out of the game for his own protection. And it was that game, as a matter of fact, where Medwig was taken out as the fans in left field for Detroit throwing things at Ducky.
Is that how he got his nickname? Duck?
Not bad, Palmer. Not bad.
Too shabby.
It's 10-0. What are we going to talk about?
A lot of pitchers ducked that year because I think it was that year when Ducky Medwig had 64 doubles. It's an all-time record. Next 4 innings come up with records.
3-2 the count. Andujar angry with Denkinger and wants Porter to come out. Now he's about ready to get tossed out of the game, and somebody better step in a hurry. Not only the frustration tonight, but the whole end of the season for Andujar, and Williams is getting him out of there. You can see that coming.
Second manager in Major League World Series history to ever get booted out outside of Earl Weaver in 1969 in a World Series game.
And Billy Martin.
Billy Martin also.
I think. We'll check it.
Billy Martin's argument with Ed Sudol when he was behind the plate.
And now things are really getting very heated now, and out of the dugout they come. And the Cardinals are venting their wrath on the umpire. The Cardinals just don't know what to do right now. They are so angry and so frustrated that you could almost sense this kind of a scene coming to a head. This is a long and excruciating situation. This is why we began to talk about it in this inning. We checked that Martin was ejected in the 76 series, so Herzog is out of there. He can stand in the tunnel and relay instructions. Really just it's a gesture when you throw a man out. Andujar is beside himself.
Well, see for yourself. Is the ball a strike?
That ball wasn't a strike, I don't think, in fairness to everybody.
Because I don't really think, Tim, that it has anything to do with tonight. Obviously, they're upset, but last night there was the pivotal play. Denkinger calling Portis safe at first when they felt he was out. There's Jim McKean behind the plate when Andujar pitched before, when he really did not have much control. It was all over the place. They felt that they didn't get the breaks then. There was another call that Jim McKean had on the bases, which really didn't have anything to do with it.
I have never seen a team come this unraveled, but I can understand it. I can understand it, but you have never, in recent times, watched a team come this unraveled. The pitcher comes down, the manager gets thrown out, guys are out of the dugout moving people away from umpires. But that's what happens. It's 10-0 in the 5th inning, and you've blown a 3-1 World Series lead. And you've done it this way, and you've got to stay out there for another 4 innings. It's 3-2 as you get back to some semblance of baseball. And it's inside ball 4. So they're loaded up now, and Andujar's thrown out of the game, and they better get him out of there. They better get him out in a hurry. Nick Leyva, Terry Pendleton, Ozzie Smith, and somebody will have to keep their arms around Andujar for a while in the clubhouse as well.
I'll tell you, Joaquin Andujar may never recover from the second half of this season.
Oh boy, I think you're right. I think you're right, absolutely.
Once again, it almost looks like an instant replay. A running fastball, it's way inside. Again, another emotional outburst. Again, it does not have anything to do with tonight. A man that was 17-4 at one point, went on to win 21 ball games, could not pitch the big game when he wanted to.
Here is Bob Forsch coming into pitch as this has taken on bizarre dimensions right now. 10-0. Announcers always are trying to sit here figuring out ways to hold an audience when the score is 10-0. The Cardinals have done it for us.
Going back to Andujar, no doubt we will possibly see a suspension in the '86 season. You go back to when Bert Campaneris in '72 threw his bat at Larry Monroe, was suspended for a week the following year. Not something you'd like to see, but you can't lose your poise, you can't lose your cool, in spite of how badly things go on the mound. I think this is just a culmination of frustration, really, for the last 2 months for Andujar, not to mention the Cardinals in general.
What if Andujar is traded to the Royals over the winter?
I don't think that's going to happen. Balboni in the dirt. That one gets away from Porter, and it's 11-0 as this massacre goes on. I would suspect right now are being managed, at least ostensibly, by Hal Lanier as you watch the Wild pitch again. And that's with a capital W.
Porter tries to backhand it. It's now 11-0.
And Balboni trying to give him a 2-touchdown lead with a 3-run shot here. He's walked and singled twice. Infield is back. Lanier, I would suspect, is sort of calling the shots. I say sort of because I don't know exactly where Herzog is right now. As you see, White at third and Sundberg at second. But if he really wants to manage, he can be in the runway and pass instructions along. But Lanier at the reins, at least as far as the umpires are concerned. And Lanier may be beginning his managing career a little early because he is a prime contender for the Houston job. There is Lanier without the jacket on the right of your screen. Rich Schoendienst and also Mike Rourke with Gene Gieselman, the trainer. Schoendienst, the former manager, but I think Lanier has the card. Hit in the air to right center field and deep, but McGee is on the run and chases it down. But in the inning, Kansas City sends a dozen men to the plate. Score 6, into 5, 11 11-0 Royals.
After the eventful fifth inning settles down, and although the Cardinals were still unable to score, they didn't give up any more runs to Kansas City. Now let's head to the top of the ninth, where St. Louis has one final chance to overcome the Royals and win the 1985 World Series.
11-0 Kansas City to the ninth inning. Tommy Herr, Jack Clark, and Andy Van Slyke. Brett Saberhagen lost in the shuffle, pitching a shutout, pitching brilliantly again. He had it when they needed it in Game 3, and he's their man tonight.
Certainly is. We talked about control. Hasn't walked anybody. The Royals sent 12 people to the plate in the fifth inning.
White, 2 outs to go.
On the bench for seemed like about 40 minutes, comes back out, throws strikes. Everybody thinks it's a walk when the score is 11-0, but you have a tendency sometimes, a lot of pitchers can't pitch in the big leagues, lose their concentration. That hasn't been the case tonight.
Clark at the plate. One thing about the Kansas City fans, and they can be very proud of it, for the first time in a while, we have no horses ringing the field. 1-1. You don't need them here. They are not the kind of people who are about ready to go out and tear up George Thomas' property. 1-2, and that's sort of refreshing these days.
Almost pose that as we don't think.
We don't think. I'm pretty sure of it. Now, a few may wander out there. In the air to center field, and it's Wilson. And there's 1 out to go. Andy Van Slyke, the batter. The two Bretts sharing a delicious moment. To Motley for the title. Kansas City Royals are the 1985 World Champions.